Hi and welcome back to the 371 Souls Lab videos. Today we're doing lab number 5, the Proctor compaction tests. Now this test consists of two separate tests, number 1 being the standard Proctor compaction test, and 2 being the modified Proctor compaction test. These tests will help us to determine the moisture content, the optimum moisture content of the soil, as well as the maximum dry unit weight. We can use these to create a specification block to determine if this soil will meet the structural fill requirements as per our lab guide. Let's dig in. Before we get started, let's go ahead and just do a review of the equipment that we're going to use for this lab. First is we're going to use the small scale right here to be able to weigh our tear cans. Next, we're going to use our large scale to weigh our mold, as well as the mold with the soil in it. Next, we have our mold right here, fully equipped with a top collar, middle section, base plate, and wing nuts. Next, we have our soil sample in a plastic container right here. From our tear cans, note, mark down what the top says right here. So we'd say 5 alpha and 5 bravo. So make sure you remember those. We have our sharp edge bar right here. And this will be used for helping to shave off the top material or the excess material from the mold. We have our pocket pinchometer right here. This guy come in handy. And then we have our sharp-edged scraping tool, and this will be used once we put in a lift of soil to scrape the top. That way, when we put another lift of soil in, it kind of meshes with that first lift, and so you don't have just 2 lifts separated by a linear line. You're putting you're scratching it in there to make sure that the 2 lifts will mesh. And we have our large spoon, and this will be used to put the soil into the mold. Then we have our releasing agent, and we'll be using this to spray the inside of the mold just to make sure that the soil isn't sticking to the mold. So when we push it out, it doesn't stay stuck to the side of the mold. Right here we have our 5.5 pound hammer, and this will be used for our standard Proctor test. And when we use this, we want to ensure that we put the hammer all the way up to the top, so that way we know it can't go any farther. And then drop. Once you release it, we know that this will go 12 inches every single time. So you want to make sure you're bringing it up to the top and then releasing it. Hope I didn't dip the table. Next, we have the Big Papa, aka the 10 pound hammer. This will be used for the modified Proctor test. And again, same thing, we want to bring it all the way to the top and then releasing it to compact the soil. And this will be used for the modified Proctor test. And once we bring it up the top, it will go a total of 18 inches. So that way we ensure every time it has an 18 inch drop. That does it for our material for this lab. So you're probably asking yourself what the hammer is. It's not your typical hammer. These are our 2 hammers that we'll be using for the lab. We have our 5.5 pound hammer. This will be used for the standard Proctor test. And this will be used for compacting the soil for each lift. And when you do this, you want to take the hammer, pull all the way up to the top where you kind of hear that click, so you know that the top of the hammer is at the bottom of this piece of steel kind of enveloping the hammer. So you make sure that it goes to the top right there. And when you release it, it's going to fall a total of 12 inches. And the reason why we want to bring it up to the top edge each time is we want to make sure we have a standard drop length, which is going to be 12 inches every single time. So again, every time you use this, pull up the top, make sure it hits the top, and then release it from the top. And again, this is the 5.5 pound hammer. This will be used for the standard Proctor test. Now next, we have our 10 pound hammer, which is right here. And this will be used for the modified Proctor test. So just remember, 10 pounds is a lot bigger than the 5 pound one. So the 10 pound, same rules apply. Probably not going to be tall enough to bring it all the way up, but we're essentially going to scrape the top till it hits the top of the metal casing right here, and then release it. And we're going to release it until it hits the bottom. So each time we know it's going to travel not 12 inches like it was in the 5.5 pound hammer, but 18 inches for the modified Proctor test. So again, standard Proctor test, 5.5 pound hammer, 12 inches. And then modified Proctor test is a 10 pound hammer with an 18 inch drum.
The first thing we're going to do for this lab is we're going to weigh the mold without the collar. So go on and loosen up the wing nuts, and then just take the collar off and set it aside. And go on and weigh the mold using a large scale. And then once you got that weight, you're going to go on and weigh each of the tear cans individually, and you're going to weigh these using the small scale. So once you have the weight for all 4 of the tear cans individually, you're going to go ahead and put the collar back on the mold. Just like that, and then you're going to tighten the wing nuts down to just where they're finger tight, nothing crazy. And then before we can start the actual compaction test, we got to spray the inside of the mold with the releasing agent to help get the soil out after we compact it. So you want to fully coat the inside of the mold, but not to the point where like the releasing agent is dripping out of it. So just fully coat it. Just like that. And now we can start the compaction test. The next part of this lab, we're going to go in and fill up the mold up above the interface of the mold and the collar. We're going to do this in a series of 3 lifts. So the first lift is going to take it between 1/3 and halfway up to the interface between the mold and the collar. The second lift is going to take it to within 1/2 inch or 1 inch of the interface. And then the third lift is to take it above the interface after compaction. That's very important. If after the third lift, after you compact it, it's not above that interface between the mold and the collar, we're going to have to restart this test. So in between each lift, you're going to take this blue tool, you're going to scratch up the surface of the soil so that it can fully mold together in the next lift. And then after each lift, you're also going to compact the soil with this standard Proctor hammer, which is a 5.5 pound hammer from a drop height of 12 inches. So for the standard Proctor test, we're going to go and start this. Take a spoon, and you're going to fill this mold up for the first lift approximately 1/3 to 1/2 of the way up to the interface. And once you got enough soil in there, you can go and use the back end of the spoon just to kind of smooth it out, get ready to compact it. So you just take your hammer, put it in there, and raise this to the full height, and just let it drop. You can do this 25 times, just moving it around the sample. After you've done this 25 times, you're going to take the blue tool and you're going to scratch up the surface of the soil to make it easier for the next lift to compact on it. In your next lift, you're going to take it to within 1/2 inch to 1 inch of this interface between the mold and the collar. Take the hammer, do another 25 drops. After you've done that 25 times, you're going to take the blue tool again, scratch up the surface. And then you're going to add at least another 2-3 inches of soil to get it above that interface after you compact it. 25 drops again for the last lift. Okay, so after we've compacted the soil, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the collar. To do this, just loosen up the wing nuts, twist the collar, and take it off. So if you did it right, you should have soil above the interface between the collar and the mold. So you're going to take this sharp edged bar, and you're going to use this to scrape the soil off of it. You kind of want to do this at an angle because you don't want to actually pull soil out from below the interface. So you're just going to do this in different directions and just take the soil off. And you want to get to the point where the bar is touching the top of the mold and you're not really hitting any more soil. So you can see right here, I took out a little bit of a chunk. That's okay if that happens. Anything from 1/8 to 1/4 inch. If that happens, just take some soil that you've already knocked out and just fill that back in. So now that you have it flush with the top of the mold, you're going to take this brush and you're going to get all the excess soil off of the base and the mold itself so you can weigh it. Once you get all the soil off, you're going to weigh this on the large scale and record that weight. And to calculate the unit weight of the soil, know that the volume of the mold is 1/30 of a cubic foot. So after you get that done, you're going to take the pocket petrometer, perform the petrometer test. So first, we want to make sure that the red bar, when you're going down, is all the way to the top. And you're going to do this in 3 different sections at 3 different points across the mold. You're just going to insert it until it hits this top part right here. Push all the way down. And if you max out the test and it does not go any farther, you're just going to write greater than max as you're recording for that. So you're going to do that at 3 different points. As you can see, mine is greater than max. 2 out of the 3, and on 3 out of 3, it's greater than max. That's okay. So after you perform the petrometer test, you're going to remove the rest of the soil from the mold. So the easiest way to do that is to just loosen up all these wing nuts, including the one on the side. And then take the mold away from the base. Set that out of the way. Now if you use the release agent well, hopefully it should slide out. Just like this. If you have trouble with this, contact your lab technician or your instructor and they should be able to help you. What you want to do now is you're going to take a sample from the center of the mold. So you can use a spoon or the scratching tool that kind of gets in the middle of where this sample was. And you're just going to take a little bit of that sample and you put it into 2 different tear cans. When you first put it in there, you want to put the lid pretty tight because you're going to weigh it and you want the moisture content in there as well. And you're just getting that sample from the center of the mold. So once you have these, you're going to record the weight onto the small scale. And then after you have the weight, you can go ahead and clamp the lids and give these to the designated spot to your lab technician. And then we will begin the modified Proctor test. And cut. So now we're going to do the modified Proctor test. This is essentially the same thing with just a few minor differences. To begin, make sure that you fully use the releasing agent to coat the inside of the mold, especially if you had trouble getting the soil out after this last test. The key differences for the modified Proctor test and the standard Proctor test: the modified Proctor test uses a 10-pound hammer, It has an 18-inch drop compared to a 12-inch drop. And instead of doing only 3 lifts, you're going to do 5 lifts. But you're still trying to reach the target of after the compaction of the last lift, you're above this interface between the mold and the collar. So just give you a quick example of how to do it. This first lift, just do a few spoonfuls of the soil. Then you're going to take the hammer. Make sure you pull it all the way until it reaches the top, and just let it fall. Do this 25 times around the mold. So after you've done that 25 times, you're still going to take the blue tool and scratch up the surface of the soil. And then you're going to start your next lift. So again, that's 5 lifts, 25 blows in the hammer each time. You're still scratching up the surface after every lift. And then after your final lift and the compaction, it needs to be above this interface between the mold and the collar. And then you repeat the steps from the standard Proctor test.